record. Ooh, okay. Yes, it looks like we're recording, so that's good. Um, so can you all see my screen? Or let me know if you can't see my screen. Okay, cool, nice. I see the thumbs up. So first off, we're going to do this problem 1 here, where together we're gonna write a program, write a program to read the same file that we're gonna use for program 2, and we're going to create an array of structs, and we're just gonna have the course number and the course name. So if you've taken a look at program 2, you know that you're gonna need to work with more than just the number and the name, but today we'll just do the number and the name. And then we're also gonna write a function that will print the struct so that as we're going, we can make sure that we can actually check our work. Because that's something that I definitely suggest doing when you're working on program 2 or lab 4, is you want to check that you're actually doing what you think you're doing. And so just, even if you don't need a function that actually prints, say, the entire struct or a line in your, like a string that you're storing in an array, I suggest still writing those so that you can, there's no barrier to printing out what's going on. So to work on this, I will start here, but I will basically ask you all to kind of guide me through what I should do so that you can participate. But to start off, we're going to need to copy that file, right? And it's in public program 2 classes.csv. And I'll just put that right here. So now I have it. And then I'll call this something like May, what is it, the 27th? May 27.c. And so I'm just going to start off with a very basic program, and then I'll get some input on where I should go. So just going to get my, I know I'm going to need string. Oh wait, well, maybe not to start. We can get that in later. Okay, so here I am, set up, ready to start writing my program. So I need to create an array of structs, and I want this to contain the course number and the course name. So I guess maybe the first thing I'll do is I will actually I'll use, I'm gonna put my key casting on, start casting. I'm gonna look in the chat. Lennon said she does indeed have fun Memorial Day weekend plans. Great, no details, but I'm glad that you're gonna have fun. Okay, so I'm gonna use tab here to open the classes.csv. So I can use tab complete. Oh, also, is this font big enough, by the way? Let me know if, okay, cool. I'm seeing 1 thumbs up, which seems good. So now I can open up this classes.csv file that we have, and I can see what's in there. So my goal is to put the course number and the course name. And so I can see the course number. I'm actually thinking, I guess that's a little unclear there, but I'm thinking just this, like this 107 here. And then the course name would be, so for example, for this first line, I'd need 107, and I would need Joy and Beauty of Computing. So that's what I'm imagining. So that's my goal. So anyone want to jump in and just say one thing that I am going to need to add to my program? It could be a variable declaration. It could be a function that I think I'm going to need. How about what about a variable declaration that I'm probably going to need? We'll go back here. Any ideas? Of a variable that I might probably have in my main. Well, what does the description of the problem tell me that what's a data type that I'm told about in the problem description?
A struct for each course.
Yeah,
With
so
an array of those.
Yeah, so that's two things. So I'm going to need an array of structs. And maybe before I write that down, it might be easier if I actually make that struct, right? So can anybody else remind me of what would my syntax be if I just want to start writing down my struct? Anybody remember what the first word I would write is? See a chat in there. I can also, nice. Okay, I got a chat. I'll also try to watch that. Let's see. Oh yeah, that sticks around. Okay, so I got it. So in the chat, typedef, I see a typedef enum suggestion, but this is going to be a struct, right? So I actually need a, not quite an enum. Yeah, no problem. Yeah, so it's going to be a struct. And so so we're going to need an array of structs, and we can put this down here, but maybe it'll be easier to write that down once I've named what's my struct going to be named. Does anybody have any ideas for what I might want to name my struct? Or what it's going to hold? And someone else can come up with a name based on that. So what's my struct going to hold information about? Here, I can go back to, can you all see the description? So in the chat I see, so my struct's gonna contain information, it's gonna contain the course number, which yeah, saving that as an int is a good idea. And it's also gonna contain the course name. So maybe we can just start with that. So this is gonna be components of the struct, right? That's what I put in here. And so it sounds like I'm gonna want an int course, say course number, and I'm gonna want a character array course name. And then maybe, so this thing's holding information about my courses, right? So maybe I call it, yeah, so call it something like course, maybe I'll call it course T, because this is a user-defined type. And so if I want to go along with the style that the book has, I will just add a _T to my names of my own defined data structures, or data types rather. Great, okay. So this looks like it would probably work for us. So anybody want to tell me what my syntax will look like if I want to declare an array that holds these structs? Or if you don't know, that's, yeah, okay, we got, nice. So in the chat I see, so the type of what my array is going to hold is these course T's, right? These courses. And so just like when we were making arrays of built-in types, I start with that data type that's going to be in the array, and then I'm going to put my variable name. So courses seems like a very descriptive one. And then in here, we might have, yeah, something like size, which at this point I haven't defined, but depending on how I want to go about developing my program, maybe I could start off just, I think so I think let's for us first get this working, assuming we know how many courses there are. So let's just look at this file, and I see that there are 15 lines. So I'm actually just going to start off assuming that I just have a constant, and I'm going to define that up here. And I'm just going to call it size and say that I have 15. Oop, I don't need that. So I'm going to say, for now, assume that number to be read in is known and it's saved as size. Depending on time, maybe we'll improve our program so that we don't know how many there are. Great. Okay, so this is a good start. So at this point, what might be a next sort of thing to tackle in my program? I'll go back to my description. I can think of at least 2 different things that I might do now as sort of a next. Yeah, so reading and parsing input from the file, that is indeed, okay, one of the things that I was thinking that we could do. So let's see, read and parse input from file. And so I think it's going to be nice if I do this in a function. So maybe I call that function, maybe I call it read courses. So if I'm going to, if I want read courses to say fill this array, right? What am I going to need to take in? I can think of 2 things. Okay, so I could take in. So ideas for things to take in are the file pointer, I guess, really to be specific, and the array. So I was kind of thinking we could actually just open the file inside read courses. But if anyone has any reasons why we would want to create our file pointer in main instead of in read courses, I would definitely be interested to hear. One thing I was also thinking is we don't need size because it's a global. Nice, forgot, or it's a constant. So we definitely need the array. So do I need to do anything special to pass in my array here? And I guess maybe we remember we can't return. We don't want to return this array. We're just going to pass it in by reference. So we can just pass in the name, and that's just going to actually be a pointer to the front of the array, and then we can fill it in, and it will be filled in, and we don't need to return anything. So maybe I'm going to try making the file, creating the file pointer in read courses. Speak up now if you think that's a bad idea. Maybe we'll run into a problem, but that's just what comes to my mind first. Okay, so clearly we have not defined this yet. So I'm going to start with I'm just going to write a function prototype up here. So maybe later when I separate this into different files, I'll just already have that. I won't need to create it. Maybe I'll put a comment for myself that says user define types here. Okay. So read courses is not going to return me anything, and it's going to take in an array of course T's, and I think, yeah, why don't we just name it here? So I think that'll work for my function prototype, but who knows, maybe I'll get an error later. So function to read courses from file and put their info into the structs, which are stored in the courses array. And then, which I guess we'll say will be, how about? Okay, so if I think about what this function is going to do, so I saw some comments about the file pointer already. So let's say open file is the first thing I'm going to need to do. Can anybody remind me of the syntax? What should I type here so that we can open that file? Oops. Anyone remember what's the syntax for, let's say I first need to declare my file pointer, right? So declare file pointer, or I wonder if I could probably actually initialize it in the same line, but nice. So in the chat, I'm seeing we've got, so the syntax here. So I want a pointer to a file. So I first, that's the type there. And now I'm saying, but it's actually a pointer. And then I need my variable name. So maybe I'm going to use file. And I could do this in 2 lines, right? I could say, I could just declare it, and then I could set it equal to whatever I set it equal to. But I could also just do it in 1 line, which is nice. And then the function, so there's a function fopen, and I'm going to pass in my, I guess, okay. So Will very helpfully gave me this syntax, but could someone else tell me, what Will told us is we need the path. So that's going to be classes.csv, right? That's what we're opening. But then I also need to put something here. Can anyone tell me either what I'd want to put here or what that thing represents? Either in the chat or unmute yourself. So what should I put here?
R.
Yeah, so I should, I get to press R twice. Now there's an R there. So, and why, what does that do?
Just tells you that you're reading in from the file.
Yeah, exactly. And so if I wanted to write to a file, which I believe you do in lab 4, when I make that output file pointer, I'm going to use the W there for write. So great, I've got a file. And maybe if I want to be really thorough here, I could add something to close it. Honestly, I don't even remember the syntax, so we could see if I'm kind of guessing on that syntax. If anyone knows that I'm wrong, you could speak up. Otherwise, maybe I'll just go ahead and compile. And we'll see. We can even run it, see if anything bad happens yet. Nope. Okay. So I'm going to just assume that that's the right syntax for closing the file. All right. So now what do I need to do here? So assuming I know my size, what might I use to just process each line here? Or in words, what do I need to do? So you could tell me what sort of C thing am I going to use? Or you could tell me in words, what do I need to do now? I'm going to have to start calling on people. All right, well, Lennon, you're at the top of my like thing that I can see of the list. So any thoughts on what I
Could
might
you
do next?
repeat the question really quick?
Just what might I do next? So I know that I have my file. My goal is to, my overall goal in this function is to create this array of structs, but what might be some step that I work on next?
So you could just put it into a regular array before you break it down into the different struts, maybe, or when you do,
Yeah.
you could do the official like f read in for
Yeah.
the file.
Yeah, I guess, so you're saying, I mean, I need to actually read the lines, right? Regardless of whether I save them as an intermediate step, as a string or something, or if I just deal with them, I need to actually read the lines, right? So say how am I going to read all 15 lines?
Since we know it's 15 lines, you can just do a for loop.
Yeah. Yeah, great. So let's see. I just gonna do a for loop. Sounds great. I guess I've got size already. Okay. So I guess I didn't specify which, like if there's any specific way that you need to read this in, but I believe that Lab 4 says that you need to use fgets. So I feel like we might as well do that. So let's say we want to use fgets. Does anybody remember the syntax for fgets? We'll say use fgets to read a single line.
It's the
Yeah, so we could use a while loop, and I think it'd be good if we do that in the end. So yeah, Will in the chat gave us an idea. So it looks like our fget syntax is we inputs are inputs. We have the buffer, I guess, which I'll say is sort of a pointer to where we want to read, where we want to store what we read. Maybe I'll try to make this a little more nice here. Okay, so first we need to store what we read somewhere, right? And then what's that second argument? You said 50. Will, do you want to elaborate on what's the 50 mean?
I kind of forgot, but I think that's the number of bytes it reads in at a time into the buffer. And then you can look at the stuff in the buffer for actually manipulating the information.
Yeah, my understanding is it's I don't know if I don't think it's bytes. I think it's actually characters, the number of characters, like the max number of characters that you're expecting. Which, oh wait, a character is
Oh
byte.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I think it is. Well, I
I-
think it. Yeah, I think it's
Work, yeah,
bytes. 'Cause
right,
it's
yeah.
pretty dumb about characters, but yeah, I think that it'll stop if it hits like a new line or anything.
Yeah. And I think my understanding is, I don't know if any of you have actually tried using just gets, and then the compiler gives you an error, but by adding this, so I guess since gets didn't have any guarantee on how long you could pass in, I guess it didn't have any guarantee on how long the string would be, but fgets does. And so I think that actually can cause like security issues that I don't know things about, but that's what I hear. So yeah, we also need length of, I guess, I think of it as the max length of string, which is also the max number of bytes. And then file, pretty self-explanatory, which is pointer to file, I guess, from which to read. Okay, so then if we try to actually, oh, and then finally, what does fgets return to us? So I think it actually, you know, I think it actually gives us back now that I'm here trying to explain it, I think it might give us, because here you're saying we can go until it's null. So now I'll need to look back and see, because it kind of feels like it's a duplicate if we store it, but then we also get this pointer to what we stored. And if that was null, then we'd keep going. But I think we get, this could be a good opportunity to fgets C return. Okay, I actually looked into this. Oh, okay. Let's look at this one. Yeah, the same. It's kind of confusing to me that we both pass in where we want to store it, but we also get that back if it's successful. But regardless, we can use it to read, to check that we have not come to the end of the line or end of the file. So pointer to string read in if successful. And so we can use this Okay. So how does this look for us? We've got, well, first off, say we do call this buff. Say it's length 50, and file is the name of our file pointer, right? So, okay, C is telling me buff is undeclared. Anyone want to tell me how do I solve this buff undeclared issue? What do I need? Mark, we just heard from you for the first time. Any thoughts on how can we declare this? How do we solve this problem? What's our problem with buff right now? Or okay, I'm not hearing from Mark. Let's see. Brendan, you're above Mark on my list, so what do you think? What's our problem here, Brendan?
Not actually trying to check with what I have. Not actually all that sure.
Well, what's the first argument to fgets?
It should be the file that you're, or I guess the array that you're writing to. Or sorry, the file that you're writing in from.
I think it's actually, that's the third one. So I think the first one is, yeah, Mark says you need size for buff. That is a true statement. So my first argument is where I want to store this string. So I guess I have some choices to make right now. So my end, yeah, so buff, it needs to be a pointer to an array of chars. Yeah, perfect. So it needs to be the string that I read in. So I have some design choices to make. So I could first read in every string, every line, and maybe make an array of those. But maybe I could also kind of just do everything in one swoop. Maybe I read a line at a time, and then I put it in straight into my struct. So maybe let's try it that way. So let's say I just want buff to be, declare buff as a character string, as a string, right, which is a char array. So I guess, and this is to hold each line, right? So I'll call it buff, and it is, oops, it's a char array. I'm gonna call it buff. So I need a size for buff. Given what I've written already, what would make sense for me to put here for the size? Which is the length of the line. This is like the max length of a line that I'm reading in, but I've kind of already said how big I can read in. Yeah, 50, because I'm saying down here, I already said fgets is only going to take in 50, so we definitely want to, we wouldn't want to make this any bigger because we're never going to store anything bigger in there. We could, if we wanted to, well, first maybe we'll see if this, yeah, we could take a look at our classes.csv file and see, is 50 a good choice? Let's see, this one looks like it's the longest. I'm just going to jump to the last character, which I do with, 91. Okay, so to jump to the last character in a file in Vim, you can always press Shift-4, which is the $. And down here, it's telling me what column I'm at. So it says I'm at column 91. So instead of saying 50 here, because my goal is to read in these lines and save them in buff, I'm actually going to make this 100 because that seems more reasonable to me. All right. So let's just, at this point, I would say, let's do something like print these lines as we read them. So I'm expecting buff to be a string, and it actually might have a new line. I believe it will have a new line character, so we can test that theory because fgets, I'll say, note, fgets does read in the new line character if space. So I am expecting the new line. So let's just print this out to check that we're actually reading it. And so I'll write this, I'll compile, I'll run, and great. Well, that looks good. So that's a good milestone for our program. We're successfully reading in each line. Okay, so now buff is that line. So maybe let's grab the first line here so we can paste it in. Example of buff. And if I'm in insert, oh, I think I used yank, so I can use paste here with just a P. So now, okay, so I know what buff looks like. So what do I want to do now that I have this string? Any thoughts? What's my goal? Or how I'm going to get there? I'll go back to the description. Oops, here it is. Okay. I assume I have like the chat and the list of all y'all kind of covering some of the text here. So let me know if, I assume y'all don't see that because Zoom is smart and it assumes that you can see the chat your own way if you want. But let me know if it's covering it. So what do I have a line from the file. What do I need to extract from it? I think we've said it before, but I'm really forgetful. Okay, great. The class name and the class and the number. Perfect. So needs to get class name. So anyone have an idea of which string function I'm going to use? I guess I'll start off. Hint, we're going to need to include, or I think the easiest way to do this is to include string.h. So what string function? Okay. G to get to the end. All right, what string function can help me get the class name and the class number? Yeah, perfect. So strtalk will allow me to split on the comma. Love it. So the syntax for strtalk, I believe I pass in, the first time I call it, I'm going to need to pass in my string that I want to split. So that's buff. And then I pass in my delimiter. So if I split on the comma, and then so if I just run this, what it's going to do is it's going to find that comma and it's going to replace it with an end of end of string character. So I would have, maybe I'll just ignore the end of this string. And, oops. Oh no. So if I do this, what's going to happen is this is going to get replaced by the end of string character. And so actually, I think I could still use buff. Buff still would point to the front of this, but it's probably more readable if I do something like, say, I have a character pointer, and I actually haven't done this all in one line, but I think I could do something like, I have a character pointer, and maybe I call it class num. So that would, I think, point to the front here. Let me know if you see any errors that I'm making. And so I would say, let's just go ahead and print this, make sure class num is, that's going to be a string. It's probably not going to have, it doesn't have a new line. It's just going to go, just going to print out this. So I'm going to put in a new line and I'll try class num. I guess we still have, oh, okay, so that's good. That seems to have worked. I could also, I guess the issue with declaring it down here is that I am gonna redeclare it every time. So maybe I'll put this declaration up here and I can, then I'll just, I won't redeclare it every time, but I can just reassign it every time. Class underscore num. Okay, so this is exciting news. We have that class num, but let's go back up to look at our struct. And our course number is an int. So how am I going to get my int out of this? Any ideas? So I want to set, let's see. Yeah, so ATOI, I have ASCII to an integer, but I can't do that on, let's go back to what I have. So it's CSCI 107 right now. So I would need just that 107, right? So if I want to use ATOI, oops, that was not. So I could do, maybe I assume CSCI is always going to be, I guess there's some things I could do. I could instead first split on a space, and then actually throw that away, just ignore it. So let's say I wanted to do that. So instead of, first I'm going to split on a space. And I can just actually sort of drop that on the floor. So I could say something like strtalk. It's going to be my first time calling it, so I do need to pass in buff. And I want to split on the space. But by not assigning it to anything, I've just dropped it on the floor. I can't get at that anymore. So what I've done is I've changed this to, I guess this is the one so I don't have this yet. This is still a comma, but I have, this has been replaced with a end of string character. Does that make sense? This is kind of confusing stuff. So that's what it looks like after I call str talk. Then now I can actually pass in null here, and it will just know, I think this is right. It'll just know to keep going on that same string I was working with before. And now I can pass in my comma, and then I'll get, so this was that's how I will get just my 107. So maybe let's run this and just make sure. Seemed like that worked. So are there any questions about what I just did to get just the number into the class num? Okay, I will assume not. So yeah, so I can use ATOI. So let's say, I guess, so my goal is to assign it into, I've got courses is my struct here. So courses is an array of structs. I've got my I, so I can get in there. So can anyone tell me, so my component name, I'm just going to jump to the front of the file, is course number. As component course number. So what is the syntax? How am I going to finish this line so that I can write? So for like that first line, I put the int 107 into courses that or for that, I assign the component course number for this specific struct that is stored at courses at I. What can I write here? So we know we can use ATOI. That's what's going to be at the end. So I still got something here. And ooh, I wonder if I need to import or include any other headers for this. I guess we'll see. And also, so yeah, I got some questions here. Anybody want to help me fill them in? Any ideas? Or just in words, even if you don't remember the syntax. So the thing on the left of the equals is what is being assigned to. So I need to assign something on the left. You can tell me the actual syntax that I'm going to need or just the idea. And then what's the thing that what value am I going to assign it on the right?
On the left, you just want the name of the field in the struct for the course number, I think.
Yeah, and I can use the dot operator to access it.
Yeah.
So it's course number. And then on the right,
You just put class num.
yeah, I also, this would be something that I would just test. Okay, I bet this is going to tell us, yeah, that, so ATOI, my guess is it's in the standard library and I haven't imported that yet. And that's why it's saying you're trying to define this right here, but it doesn't exist yet. So I think I would have to include something like that. We'll see if that helps. Okay, that seems to have gotten rid of my. So great. So now I at least believe that I've gotten my class number in as an integer. And so that's exciting. So my next task is to get the name, right? And put in, see what the name is, course name. Where's my cursor? Course name. So let's say, okay, first I'm gonna need to use strtalk. So here's my example. Here's my current version of my string. So I want to use strtalk to get a pointer to this part, right? So again, it ends in a comma, and I want to keep going with the same string that I've been using. So I can copy this, but I don't want class num. I want, let's call something called class name. So I want this pointer to the start of this string here. So I'm gonna copy and say, what do I want to happen after this? I want this to be a end of string character, and that's what strtalk does for me. So anyone have any ideas about how I can get rid of this error that I have right now? Maybe yeah, anyone? Ideas here? Will was the last person to talk, so we'll say someone other than Will. Help us. I guess maybe I can think of potentially 2 ideas. Yeah, nice. Declare a character pointer class name under where the class num declaration is. Great idea. Can't believe I didn't think of that. Okay. And woohoo, looks like that's gonna work. And then maybe we just trust that it worked. We can, when we test out our printing, our struct function, we'll check our work, or we'll see if we get any error, any compiler issues or errors when we run it. But so now we've got the class name and so we need to put class name in struct. So I might be tempted to do something like courses. So courses that I is the struct that I'm filling or I'm making assignments to. I might be tempted to do something like this, right? It feels really nice, but I can't, right? So anyone, so I know this doesn't work. So what do I do to assign, to do string assignment? If I want to assign a variable to a string. Use a string. I use a string function. Need to use something. Anyone know what it is? Yeah, string copy. And so I think my first argument is the thing I want to copy into. So I want to copy into courses at I, and I want to copy from class name. And incompatible type for argument 1. Oh yes, I don't want to copy the entire thing. I want to put it into class name. Oh, okay. Well, there's multiple reasons why this didn't work. You probably were noticing. Let's just so. Oh, it's not class name. Course name. Cool. So course name. Okay, so I'm not, at least within Vim, I'm not getting anything wrong with that. Now that we actually have, I'll just show that I think in Vim even we should get some issue when we try to do this, right? So that doesn't work. Okay. So at this point, I think that we have our struct successfully made. So maybe I'll just compile and run. Oh, okay. Any ideas about what I did wrong here? Because maybe I'll print. Also feel free to speak up if you know what I did wrong. Well, it looks like I am at least reading these in. Let me look at my. Well, just my debugging things I might try. I might say, let's just try to look at the first one, see if I still get an issue. Looks like not. What happens if I do 10? So I wonder if so I have some issue. I'm not positive what it is at this moment. Maybe, well, it's already 12:09, so I do want to make sure that you all can have a break or get any questions about like lab 4 or the quiz answered. So I think for now, I will give you a break for 20 minutes. If there are questions, I'll be here. And then we can either pick this up again at 12:30, or yeah, that's probably what we'll do. Unless anyone has any ideas they want me to try right now. But I do want to give you a break. So, does that sound good to everyone? Break time? Great. Okay, so I'm going to stop recording. If I can